co-host is Chuck Andreas. Welcome to the show, Chuck.
Hi, how you doing, Linda?
Doing very well, thank you. Chuck is a suicide prevention advocate. He lost his beloved wife, Gloria, in 2014. And one night, he was just so lost in the throes of grief that he came this close to ending it all. And since that moment, he has turned things around, and he now talks to students. He works at a university in New York, and he has become a suicide prevention advocate. And one of the things I love about you, Chuck, is that you speak from the heart. You are honest and candid and authentic. And tonight we are going to talk about isolation. There's a lot of people in our country who are struggling with the idea of staying home and staying safe. And it's all, we're already struggling with the layers of grief. And now having to stay home to stay safe adds an extra layer on top of that isolation already. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So thanks so much for joining me, Chuck. You are a treat to have on the show, and I look forward to the conversation. Viewers, if you have any questions for Chuck, you're welcome to write them in the thread in the comments. And even if he doesn't get to them all tonight, he can answer them later in the thread. So, Chuck, as a widower, you have already felt the layers of isolation that come naturally after losing your life partner. And now, since the country has been on, a lot of people call it lockdown. A lot of people are, calling it isolated, quarantined. There's different verbiage we're all using to explain needing to stay home to stay safe. You continue to work. You have been deemed an essential employee at your university, although the university is closed to students and such. And because of your position now and as a suicide prevention advocate, a lot of people have reached out to you. They've been struggling. What are some of the stories that you've been hearing?
Well, it started actually a couple weeks ago. First with coworkers, actually being at the university, cleaning up where there wasn't anybody around. And because of all the news talk about the virus and how it spread so quickly and easily, there was a lot of tension on campus. And it really started to wear on people and wondering. So it's just something that it's not as bad now as it originally was. But at first it was a scary situation because you weren't supposed to, you had to be careful around door handles and anything people touched. Well, we clean. So we're touching everything that everybody's not supposed to touch. So it would be a long day, and then go home. And on your way home, if you wanted to stop at the store, you had to be careful. And then you go home at nighttime and you're alone and listen to all the virus talk. And it was a wear and tear. It still was. And one of the reasons that I had got a hold of you was because, like you said, I do a lot of work when I'm not at work. A lot of people get in touch with me if they're having a problem or if they know somebody who's having a problem. And it really started to appear the week before Easter. The week before Easter, I had a friend get a hold of me and ask me to get a hold of one of their friends, and would I please talk to him, because they were contemplating hanging themselves.
Wow.
So that was sort of it's something that usually sort of happens. It's sort of normal for me to get something like that. But then during the week, I got an instant message that somebody was having a tough time. So I talked to them. And then Easter came. And one of the things that people forget about a holiday, that a holiday can be a trigger. And when you deal with, unfortunately, people that are really depressed or contemplating suicide, the last thing they need is a trigger. And because of Easter not being able to be with family, like everybody's always with family on Easter, it's a huge family holiday. So everybody gets together, has a great time. You weren't able to do that. So, and me, from speaking for myself, was the worst thing you can do is be alone on a holiday. I mean, it's just, if you have the choice to go someplace, it's fine. And you say, no, I really don't feel like it because maybe you have anxiety. But when you don't have a choice and you're stuck at home, period, with nothing to do, it can really take you into a dark place. Yeah. And unfortunately, on Easter, there were 2 incidents that happened. And so I started thinking, wow, if this is happening now, I have a feeling it's going to start to steamroll. Because this isolation thing, I don't care what anybody says, it's hard.
It's very hard.
And it's a daily thing. And not knowing when it's going to end is one of the biggest problems, because it just seems like it's a real long road. I mean, this has been, before it got official, it's been since March. I mean, it's been a long time. And especially here in New York, because the governor comes on TV every day, and it adds to the stress when he talks about. And please don't take this wrong. I understand the situation in New York City is really, really bad, but it just makes you wonder when you're sitting there alone. You start thinking, and that's the worst thing you can do is when you're alone sometimes.
Yeah, right.
You start thinking, and so I just wanted to be able to reach out to people and let them know that, you know, there are things that we'll discuss that you can be able to do, but you're not alone. You know, if you're sitting home alone, please don't think that. One of the things that we need to do and pass this on, and one of my friends discussed this with me, is FaceTime. FaceTime is something that is really important, whether you FaceTime with your family or a friend, because it sort of takes a telephone call is fine. You know, you get that sort of connection with somebody, but being able to see somebody's face and see their reaction, it just feels a little bit warmer.
Yeah, and you know, we're physically distanced.
Yes.
But the heart knows no distance. And so when you can see and hear someone and interact with them, aside from not being able to give and receive a hug, the interactions are still there. And one of the ways that people can reach out virtually is through an app called House Party. And it is similar to Skype or FaceTime, only you can do it with more than one person. And this is just a little tidbit that our viewers, if you're feeling, you know, cooped up and disconnected from the people that you love, download the app House Party and create what some people are doing is called a virtual happy hour. And I know my sister did that with her coworkers from the school on Friday, and they all got together on virtually instead of in person as they had for many years every Friday. And they had a virtual happy hour, and they talked and they laughed for an hour. And she said it was so good. And so I just want to share that because a lot of people feel like, you know, what can we do? We're not supposed to leave the house unless it's for an essential trip, you know, for groceries or medicine or what have you. What can we do? Well, there are ways that you can connect with others, and House Party is one of them. So if you haven't heard of House Party, check it out and see if that's a way that you can connect with those that you love.
That's a great idea. And the other thing is, and I actually just had to have a meeting with it today, and it's the first time I ever used it. And it's, you know, that I am not this is a big step for me. Talking on a laptop is huge for Chuck, trust me. But I had to do a Zoom meeting today. So it was my first time with Zoom.
Okay.
And I felt like I won the lottery when I actually connected it by myself. I didn't need any help. So I was really impressed with myself. And trust me, if you know me, that's my sister and brothers are laughing right now because it's like, I had to have Alicia help me, you know, set this up because it's, ladies and gentlemen, it's my laptop, but this is the first time I've actually really used it. And I've had it for probably 7 months. So
Well, and
Yeah,
so the collateral blessing that has come from this is that it has forced us to learn new things. And for you, it's to how to do Zoom.
oh,
And
forced is a definite word.
and so Zoom is another excellent way to interact with people you love. If you have the free version, they usually cap those Zoom meetings off at 40 minutes.
Oh,
And
really?
so if you're an individual, most likely you don't have a paid version. And so that's, how do you get around that? Well, then try House Party. There are other options such as Skype and FaceTime, but again, you're limited by some of them on how many people you can interact with at one time or length of time and such. And so do explore options for connecting with people. Zoom is a great way we have meetings on Zoom all the time. And of course, a lot of classes are being taught via Zoom right now. And whether you love it or hate it, it doesn't really matter. It's there. It's a tool to use. Okay. And until life returns to normal, it is an option to connect with loved ones. And again, it doesn't replace the physical hug. But one of the things that you can do on this virtual setting to indicate in a time when you would give someone a hug is to put your hand on your chest. And so if your camera is far back enough to capture that, that is a signal of it replaces a physical hug. It's a virtual hug. It's a symbol of a virtual hug, is putting your hand on your chest. So that's just another way to let someone know that you love them. But going back to this isolation, it's really interesting, Chuck, because when COVID was becoming a pandemic, and of course, I live north of Seattle, and Seattle is where it originally became that hot seat here in the United States before it moved over to New York, and people were becoming more and more alarmed about it, and rightfully so. We didn't think it would change our life the way that it has, and then when school started being interrupted, and then people were put on furlough or sent home or what have you, it really disrupted life as we knew it. And so when you're grieving the loss of someone you love, and I want to preface that with something here. It's been 10 years since I lost my daughter. It's been 6 years for you since Gloria died.
It's 5 in a couple months now.
Yeah. And so when you lose someone you love, it's a lifelong process for learning to live with them in your heart instead of your arms. And so people often think, oh, it's been 10 years or, oh, it's been 5 years. Well, that person and their essence of them and how they were part of your life is still right here in your heart. So it still feels very fresh, right? And yes, so something like this, where we are having to isolate for the health of those we love, as well as our own, it just adds another layer of it feels a bit like a wet blanket. And even if we don't go out of the house much, a lot of grievers feel housebound because they don't want to put that mask on when they go out, right? This is just another layer that they're having to deal with. And as you said, things like holidays such as Easter are very triggering normally, and now add the pandemic on top of it and people having to stay home for safety and health. It's a whole nother layer on top of their grief. And so because you have become a vocal person for suicide prevention, because you've been very open about your own story and wanting to take your life after Gloria died, and your struggles with it, people now turn to you because you speak that language. They know you get it. They know that you're not going to judge them. And so by virtue of that, you're turning your own pain into purpose and helping others. You're helping to save lives. But what is the hardest part right now? As a widower, what is the hardest part of dealing with this isolation?
Not being able, I really, and it's partially my own fault. I'm not very social right now. I haven't been social since Gloria passed away. But I have moments where I'd like to be social. And it's funny, it was just maybe 2 Friday nights ago, it was like, boy, you know what, I'd like to go out. And I laughed to myself because it was like, wait a second, you can't go anyplace. I said, well, it's a good thing that that this isolation thing is going on right now, because now I don't have a choice. I don't have to give an excuse to somebody why I don't want to go out, you know? So I'm sort of stuck. But the bad part of this is, and this actually just happened, it was 2 days ago, 2 or 3 days ago. I received a call from somebody who knows somebody who just lost their husband. And that person is struggling bad. And I was thinking while I was talking to the person that I can't imagine, and I feel really bad for anybody right now who loses somebody, because not being able, feeling the way you do where you want to cut yourself off, there's no help for you, for people just to come and talk. You know, you don't, the phone can ring all at once, but nobody's coming to knock on your door to say, hey, how you doing?
Right.
You know, you need something? Can I help you with something? That's not happening for them right now like it happened for me. So I feel sort of that I was lucky, and I hate to use the word lucky,
right?
But people could reach out to me and they, you know, hey, Chuck, here's a pot of food, because you don't want to cook, obviously, when something happens to your loved one, you know, when they pass. And so I feel, and it's a big concern for me, it's right now, is for people who are grieving, who have lost somebody, and now they have to deal with the isolation. And my concern is, what mental state are they going to be in? Because it's hard enough when you lose your partner, but it's even harder at this point in time right now. And I'm so glad that we're talking to let people know that, please, you know, ask for help.
Yeah, reach out. And so for viewers, if you know someone who has lost someone they love, reach out to them, text them, call them, Facebook them, you know, whatever your mode of communication is, reach out to them. Even if they don't respond, they got your message and they know that they are loved in that moment. And I say it that way because when you're in the acute stages of grief, it takes all the energy you have just to get out of bed. Yep. And so replying to text messages or answering the phone often take more energy than you have. Mm-hmm. And so it's not an insult to say, well, they never called me back, they never replied to my text message. Don't expect a reply. Just know that if you text someone who's lost someone they love, they got it. And they know you're thinking of them, and that's priceless to them, even if you don't get a response.
Such a huge point. And you hit it spot on. You really did. And if I had the choice between attempting to call that person or text them, texting is so important, because they can read the words. If they didn't want to answer the phone, they won't pick the phone up. But eventually, even if they don't take care of that text right then, they will look at it, and they will look at it.
Yeah, even if they don't have the bandwidth to reply, they got your message and they know you're thinking of them. Perfect. And that's priceless. Yes, and you know, a lot of people say, well, I don't know what to say, you know, so I don't want to call or text because I don't know what to say. Well, the truth is, no words are going to fix it, or we would have said them to ourselves. But what you can say are words that give them comfort. And those kinds of words are things like, I love you. I don't know what you're going through. I just want you to know I'm thinking of you. You know, you can even engage them in a conversation by saying something like, you know, tell me a favorite story about your loved one. If someone asks me a question about my daughter, they almost always say, I'm sorry, does it bother you if I say her name? No, it's a gift that you give me. Absolutely. Even today, 10 years later, people are still hesitant to say my daughter's name for fear that they're going to open an old wound. The truth is that our loved one is with us all the time. And so it's not an old wound. It's a wound that we learn to live with. Again, we learn to live with them in our hearts instead of our arms, right? And so when you say their name, it's a gift that you give us.
I love talking about Laura. I do. Yeah. And you can see it in people's faces when they come up to you, and you're waiting for them to say, something about your loved one, and it's like that, and they stop,
Yeah.
and it's like,
yeah,
please
don't stop.
come
Yeah.
on, say
So you
something.
can text,
I'll gladly talk.
yeah.
I
So
might
you
shed
can
a
text,
tear,
like I can
but
text you, Chuck, and I say, Chuck, tell me your favorite story about Gloria, you know, or what was Gloria's favorite color? What was your favorite meal? Those are the kind of text messages that, again, even if the bereaved doesn't reply, you have given them a gift.
yes.
And so do reach out to those people who've lost someone they love, whether they lost that person to COVID or not. Anyone who's lost a loved one in the past few weeks has faced grief on a whole different level.
Yes.
Because the fact that isolation is in place for most of the world. And you know, you think about it, starts even with the funeral service. Most funeral services right now are not the traditional. If they are allowed a funeral service, they have to sit 6 feet apart. The funeral directors are, supposed to enforce that. There's supposed to be no more than 10 people at the service, or they do it virtual, and it's not the same. And we think of the funeral service as the place where that healing begins, even though it's a lifelong process. That funeral service provides the first stepping stones for the healing, that processing to take place. And so when you're denied that, it can really trip up that healing process. And so by, reaching out to someone who's lost someone they love, and, texting them, calling them, and just letting them know that you're thinking of them right now will make all the difference in the world. You don't have to send a lasagna.
No, no. And I have to tell you this story. One of my sister's really, really good friends lost her mom to COVID.
Oh,
and
sorry.
Because she was around her mom, she couldn't go to the funeral. But this lady came up with this brilliant idea, and God bless her. She started a GoFundMe page, and with the money raised for the GoFundMe page, what she has done is she's taken food to the hospitals, to the frontline nurses, to nursing homes, to the ambulance crews. So all this money she uses, she gives out to different people that are first responders, to the police departments. I mean, it's unbelievable. And that's her way of paying them back. And it's such a, I can't say enough words about her. I mean, and now all of a sudden, after she started this, everybody else is caught on, and they're starting to do it. And restaurants around here and bars are taking food to the hospitals and stuff. But because of this lady, and she's just a wonderful person.
That's a beautiful idea. And truth be told, when you give, you get back so much more than you give.
Yes.
Giving is good for the giver. And so bless her for doing that. And don't forget about the last responders. There's a lot in the media right now about the first responders, and rightfully so.
Mm-hmm.
They are, out there doing what they can and working with very cumbersome equipment, the gear and such that they have to put on, and working to, save lives and such. But don't forget about the last responders, and those are the funeral professionals.
Yes.
They put our loved ones to rest. And they are, I know of one funeral director who has 4 N95s. And so he has to bake them every night to kill the germs. And, they are also pressed for time, sleep, nourishment. And people tend to not think about, we're in such a grief-phobic society. Yes. And we can't talk about death even when people are dying. And so these funeral professionals are, it just blows my mind. These funeral professionals, God bless them. They are on the other end of it.
Yeah. And
they're having to police the 6-foot rule at the funeral service. They're having to figure out how to set up, media equipment so that they can Zoom a funeral service to loved ones who can't make it or can't come because of isolation and such. And bless their hearts. So don't forget about them. I just want to give them a big shout out because we have not forgotten about you.
That's a very good point, because
yeah.
I really didn't think about it from that point of view, but the pressure that they must be under, because let's say the number is 10, only 10 people can come. So what the family has to do in that point of view is pick the 10 to go. Well, what about that 11th person? So then I actually show up, and the pressure that's on, not being able to have that full funeral is just, I just feel bad for
So a lot
everybody.
of struggles going on in the country right now, and
Yes.
more people are in need of that support. And bless your heart, Chuck, because I know that you're getting people reaching out to you wanting help. And, we only have so much bandwidth to work with, but your heart is as huge as anyone's. And, I know you well enough to know that you will be there for anyone who calls you asking for support. So I see that from the comments in the thread, you've got quite a few fans.
Oh,
so
I'm blessed. I am. I pay them a lot of money. So, one other thing that I would like to talk about is couples that are involved in this isolation, because everybody, like I at first thought that, wow, it would be really nice to have somebody here. And, missing Glore was really like, boy, I'd really like to have her, which bothered me for a while and put me in the dark for a bit. But then I received a call from a friend who was married. And they said that, Chuck, I really love my partner. I love, but there's so much tension in the house because 24/7 you're together. And I tried to explain to them that, look, wait 1 second here. I said, it's not like you guys decided to take a vacation and you're spending the time going out to dinner and having fun, and even if you're working from the house, then you're stuck at sorry, but you are stuck at the house. And so if you wanted to say, let me take a break and I'll run to the store. Okay, so you run to the store, but you get to the store, you got to put the mask on, you got to watch what you grab. So there's tension no matter what you do. If you go to grab a bite to eat at a restaurant for takeout, you got to stay 6 feet apart. And so that thought is never there.
Right.
And one thing that I explained to them was, look, you were forced into this situation. It's not like you guys made the choice. So you have to adapt. And the story that I give is, I was in between jobs, and Glore had the upholstery shop, and it was downstairs in our house. So we thought, well, I'll just help her. We'll get out more furniture and, make more money. That'll help for now. That lasted about 4 days. And Glore says to me, you know what, Chuck? Why don't you go upstairs? And as everybody knows, I love Glore from the bottom of my heart, and I still love her just as much today. But when it came to us being together 24/7 all the time, you need that space.
You love each other all the time, but you don't always like each other. But the love is always there. And, that's human nature. And so for the people who suddenly find themselves housebound with their life partner, give yourself grace, for one. This is an unnatural situation. Okay. And it's temporary also. Just remember that. The second thing is, it's okay to go find your corner of the world. Now, what I mean by that is it might be a corner in the workshop. It might be a corner in the yard. It's okay to find your corner of the world within your domain there. Yes. And just make that space yours. Okay. Yes. It's okay to take a breather. And, one of the ways that you can deal with this too is to immerse yourself in a task such as cleaning out a closet. Okay. One of the struggles that people are having is that we feel like this is out of our control. People don't like being out of control. They like to be in control. That's human nature. And so find something that you can control the heck out of. And that might be cleaning out a closet, right?
Mm-hmm.
going through photos and putting them into a photo album, or going to the workshop and rearranging your tools, or going out to the yard and pulling weeds or something.
Yep.
Regain control of something within your sphere.
Yes, and I'm glad we discussed this, because I think there's a lot of couples that are feeling the tension but don't know, because it's brand new to them. And so, everybody thinks, oh, it's okay, you're a couple, you're fine, and you have children and they're at the house all the time. No matter who it is, you need your
space. We're human. And so there is, a joke going around that at 9 months we're either going to have a whole lot of extra babies or a whole lot of divorces. Well, just remember that this is an unnatural situation and it's temporary. Yes. And at the heart of it, you love your family. You love your family.
Temporary is the key word.
But
it really is.
People who are together 24/7, that can wear on everyone. Mm-hmm. And just know that that's not a deal breaker. So just hang in there as best you can. I've got some other tips that are going to help.
Okay.
These are ones that we've passed along to the support groups. One of the big things is to create a trauma filter. You mentioned early on in the show about, you would sit down and watch the news and it was all about COVID, right? And, you can't talk about COVID without talking about death statistics, and they were going up. And so we are being overloaded with this trauma news. So whether on the radio, on the TV, and conversations on social media, it's all about COVID. And so it's okay to put on a trauma filter, change the channel, turn it off. Limit the amount of news you're exposing yourself to. And at first, a lot of us were glued to the news. We wanted to know what was going on. We wanted to know how was this going to impact our life and how deeply it was going to impact our life. And I'm going to give you an example. About a week ago, we had a forest fire in the foothills of Mount Baker, and we don't really get forest fires here. So it was, for us, that's big news. And they were talking about evacuations, and you could see that people were posting pictures of this forest fire they could see it from their homes. It was, quite large, and with the mountain in the background. And so that night I watched the 10 p.m. news, wanting to know what they were saying about it. How did it start? Were they in control of it? How far had it spread? Mm-hmm. Not one of the Seattle stations said anything about it whatsoever. It was all about COVID. I tried all 4 stations. It was all about COVID. And, it's okay to take a break from the news. It really is.
It is.
We have to sometimes.
You'd better.
So, yeah, I call it a trauma filter. Put on a trauma filter. Change the channel or turn it off.
Turn it off.
Another thing that you can do is to stay in the present. So one of the things about this, this isolation is that we don't feel in control, and that creates fear, right? So when you live with grief, you already have a fair bit of fear. And the way to deal with it is to not allow yourself to think more than 48 hours in the future. And if you find yourself struggling with that stress spiral, starting to go down the rabbit hole of the fear and the what if, and I'm not sure I can do this, recite your name, spell your name out loud backwards. And what that does is it engages a part of your brain that regrounds you. Okay. And so it's just a little tip that kind of helps you get back into the present time and not think about the future. Okay. So don't worry about next week or next month. Just don't allow yourself to think past the next 48 hours. And that's another way to stay in control and to deal with the fear. Okay.
I like that idea.
Yeah. So, and also give yourself purpose. Again, find something and control the heck out of it. And I like to use a closet because most of us have a closet that can use a little TLC. And
I'm not touching my closet. I'm sorry.
But once you dive in there, and just remember this, you always take a step back before you go too forward. And so if you're brave enough to open that closet door and to dive in and you pull everything out, and then suddenly your bedroom or your living room is filled with stuff, and you think, what have I done? I've created a bigger mess. Well, just remember, you take one step back to go two forward. And so if you stay with it and you organize it and put it back together, you've accomplished something. Mm-hmm. And it feels good. It was something you were in control of. So no matter what's going on around the world, you were in control of a little corner of your world, and you accomplished something. So,
that's true. But still, I'm sorry.
Little tidbits to help.
Okay. Can I go back to when being alone? When I wanted to talk to somebody, because I'm not real social, I would always go to this one restaurant because I knew the waiters and the waitresses. So on the weekend, I would go and have a cup of coffee and an egg and chat with them so I could get some socialization in. Mm-hmm. Now that that's taken away, I'd like some people to realize that when you're in the store and you see that older person struggling walking down the aisle, say hi to them. Because you might be the only person that gets them to say hi. I have weekends where I don't talk to anybody, and the only time that I talk to anybody is when I'm at the store.
Yeah.
And I think I think deep down in, I make an excuse to run to the store just to pick something up, just to be able to chat with somebody for a second. Because now I know all the workers in the store, and right. If I see an older person, I'm an old person, but if I see somebody by themselves, I always say, hey, how you doing? So please, people, think about that, because, there's a lot of people out here that are lonelier than what you realize.
Yeah, that's an excellent, excellent insight. And, I like to think about it as, if you say hello to one person or you smile at one person, a stranger, mm-hmm. one smile can make all the difference in their world.
It can make their day.
And you might not know it. It can make the difference sometimes between life and death. And I go back to earlier in this conversation, you were talking about someone who was contemplating hanging themselves.
Yes.
And it only takes one interaction to change the course of their future. Mm-hmm. And so think in your mind that you might be that one opportunity. So when you smile at someone in the grocery store, or you say hello, or you hold the door open for them, especially with an elderly person, as you mentioned, yes. It's not as easy for them to reach up and get something higher off a shelf, or lift something heavy. And if you can do that, we often think of it as a random act of kindness. It's just an act of kindness.
Yes.
You can do that. You might very well have made all the difference in the world for them. So I'm glad you brought that up.
There was a lady, and I don't mean to laugh about this, but it was funny. She actually was trying to climb up to get something on the top shelf. And I said, can I help you? And she said, oh, would you please? And so I grabbed one and I said, would you like another? And she goes, you know what? She goes, maybe you should hand me another one. So she actually took 2 of the boxes with her. But yeah, I just, yeah, you need to help short people. You do.
Again, giving is good for the giver.
Yes.
So bless your heart. One of the things I love about you, Chuck, is that you're just so honest and candid. And, the love that you have for Gloria continues to shine through. And you use your own life experiences to help others understand. And yes. That is a blessing. You are a blessing.
Well, I don't want other people to feel the pain I felt. Mm. And that's one of the reasons I do what I do, because that was the worst feeling ever, obviously. And so now that I understand it, I know how that is. And they say that you actually become an empath because of what you went through. And I really believe that now. I'll step out there to try to do my best to try to help somebody, just because, and let them know that, when it first happens, you don't see past 24 hours. You don't even care.
But, sometimes you have to take it breath by breath.
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
And they say take it, day by day. Well, sometimes, especially in the acute phase of grief, it's breath by breath, literally.
Yes. Oh, there were times when you'd get that tightness in your chest, and it was like after running a lot, and you're trying to get a breath, and it takes over. But I just want people to know that they can get through, and that there is a chance. And one of the things is, I had a friend a few years ago that passed away, and he'd been battling cancer for quite a while. And after he passed away, his wife lasted 6 months, and she passed away because she just started drinking very heavily. And like my friend from New Jersey, who now is no longer here because he drank himself to death. And he would never come out and admit that that's what it was. It was just that, no, I only just want to drink. He wouldn't admit that he missed her, which he did. They were together for 42 years.
Wow.
And I feel bad for him to this day, but it was hard for me. And he actually moved up here to be with somebody else, and it was just, I would see him and it just, you're not Mike. And actually his brother came from out west, from he lives out in Washington, and flew in because he had to sell the house. And so he came for they had the celebration of life thing. And I did not know this when he started talking. And he goes, Chuck was Mike's best friend. And I'm sitting in the back, and I look up, and he goes, oh, we could tell you stories. We used to laugh about Chuck. And that's how they would express themselves, because they worked together for a couple of years. And they said, oh, if somebody messed up, that Chuck would have done that. I mean, it was with all in good heart, because they were all picking on me. But it was nice to know that and he still is in contact with me now. As a matter of fact, he just texted me this week and asked me how things were going with the COVID on this side of the coast. So yeah. It's nice to have that touch. But when somebody passes, I want to be able to help their partner, so their partner knows that, like, I'm learning that you can go on.
You can.
It's always going to be a part of you, which it always will be. And the only thing that I wish people would stop doing is, Chuck, when are you going to start dating?
Yeah. They mean well. It comes from a place of love.
It does.
They hate to see you in pain, so they want to fix it. It's human nature to fix that which appears broken. But grief is not something that can be fixed, or we would have done it. Grief is a process of reconciliation, right? And so they say things like, you can have another child, or you can get out there and start dating again and such. And it's not because they think that one person replaces another. It's simply because it's hard for them to see us in pain, and they want to fix us. They want us to feel happy again. And so it comes from a place of love. And, the thing is that we know that one person doesn't replace another. The other thing that I like to share with people who are in the acute stages of grief is to know that the heart eventually learns to hold joy the same time as sorrow. And what I mean by that is that nothing will ever, ever fill that hole where my daughter once lived. But she lives in my heart. And my heart can hold joy the same time as sorrow. I can honestly say that I love life now. And yes, I miss my daughter. And yes, there's times where it brings me to my knees. Mm-hmm. But most of the time, I feel grateful for all that I have. Most of the time, the sun is shining. And I'm grateful for it. And so the heart really does learn to hold joy the same time as sorrow. It doesn't have to choose. And when you're in the beginning stages or the acute stages of grief, it's hard to believe that. It's hard to believe that you will know anything other than that horrible, suffocating pain
Mhm.
that it's hard to believe that your life will ever hold joy and laughter and beauty.
I haven't got to that point yet. I've gotten to the point where, on occasion, I feel
So,
joy.
so that's the thing, is that what happens is it feels like most of the time you're under this wet blanket of concrete that's full of pain, right?
Yes.
And every so often you get these little snippets of what I think of as, or what people think of as normal life, where you find that you're laughing or something, or for a brief moment,
Mm-hmm.
you feel something other than that acute pain. Well, eventually those moments grow in intensity and duration and frequency. And here's the thing, is that, if you watch movies and TV, they would have you believe that in one scene, someone dies, and 3 scenes later, the world has returned to normal. And that's not real life.
No.
It takes a long time, and we're not talking months, we're talking years.
No, I actually.
So that's the part that we have to have society understand, that grief is a process, and the sooner we help educate society on that, the better future generations are going to be. Because when I lost my daughter, I fully expected to follow the 5 stages of grief, not knowing that those 5 stages were originally designed for people who were dying, not loved ones left behind.
Thank you. Thank you.
There's other, I've also come to understand now as a grief educator that there are other theories and models of grief. There's a 2-stage model, the 6-stage model, the 4-stage model, and they're all just that, theories. And it's not one size fits all.
No, it's not.
And so the idea that we have to return to normal in short order, it's really about creating a new normal. But here's the cool part, is that I can honestly say 10 years later, I like Linda 2.0 a whole lot better than I did the first Linda. It took grief to bring me to my knees and create me into a different person. And, I'm good with that. I would give it all back to have my daughter.
Yes.
Make no mistake, but she lives in my heart. And she's part of my world every single day. And most of the time, my days are filled with sun. I wouldn't have believed you had you told me that 10 years ago.
I agree.
And it took me, it was probably around 5 or 6 years before I started to notice the sun shining. And then around year 7, I realized that, doing something with the pain helped me to feel better, turning pain into purpose. And then I realized that she who helps others heals herself, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so wherever you're at on the journey, just know that one day it won't always be where you are now.
Like I said, I'm getting there. I've noticed a change in myself. My coworkers haven't noticed a change in myself because I'm still the same way at work. But I feel that my friends and people that I've met along the way now, I'm a little easier to talk to. I will talk anytime now. A little deeper, I guess I'm saying, because of all the times that I have to deal with suicide and grief. But it's fine. I'm driven by it now to try to help people, which I never thought I would be in that position.
It's because you have the tools and the vocabulary and the expertise to help others. And you are a blessing. You are a rare gem, actually, and that's why you're such a treat to all.
There's a lot of people that say I was rare, all right.
But it's because your authenticity and you're candid about the dark sides of grief. And my belief is, when we talk about it, when we lay it out on the table, our fears and the darkness, then they're not so heavy. And some of that fear evaporates. And that's partly why we're addressing this isolation issue tonight, is because if you lay it out on the table, it suddenly becomes less of a burden to carry. And you realize you aren't alone. And so I want to go back for a second, Chuck.
Absolutely.
How did you handle Easter?
To be completely honest with you, I I had trouble the Easter before. At the store, they give away free hams and stuff if you buy so much. They get you to spend money is what they're doing. But I got a free ham because you know what? I like ham. I'm gonna cook a ham. Yeah. There's times I can be an idiot too. Yeah, I cooked that whole ham, but there's no way I'm gonna eat that whole ham. And so my friend says, Chuck, you can freeze a ham. Lady, you can freeze a ham, but once you thaw it out, it doesn't taste like a ham. So this year I actually gave the ham to my next door neighbor because I had some neighbors move in with 4 children. So I thought maybe I would help them out. But I'm so glad there's a restaurant here that gave out single meals of ham, brown sugared carrots, real mashed potatoes, and gravy. And so it was like, wow. So I called them and I said, can I please, can I get a set of order in? Sure. And I said, do me a favor. Can I have 2? So that way I would have the leftovers the next day. But being able to just go pick that up and say hi to somebody and see the smile on their face when you're picking it up and knowing that, they were happy about it and you were happy to get it. And then to get home and not have to cook a meal or as a guy or a human being, not have to wash any dishes.
Not have to clean up after that.
Yes, it was probably the nicest Easter I've had in a while. But it made me think that day because I remembered the year before. And that's why when I started talking and brought up the point about a trigger, that I never thought, I always talk about in my suicide talks about you have to worry about Thanksgiving, you have to worry about Christmas, you have to worry about New Year's. Never given a thought about Easter when Easter is such a big family deal. And then this year for it to be pressed upon us that you can't go anyplace. So even if you wanted to, you couldn't. So I felt bad for people who had to stay home and didn't think about the opportunity of running out to buy that meal to bring home to themselves and sitting home and, well, what am I going to have? A hamburger? You know what I mean? So that bothered me. It really did.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to lie. I struggled with Easter myself. And part of it was 2 days prior was our older son's birthday. And for the first time ever, my family wasn't going to be together because of this isolation.
There you go.
And that really bothered me. And, again, holidays do come with that extra layer of sadness for missing our loved one who's in heaven. And with our son, not being able to see him, his girlfriend is an ER nurse, and my husband had a stroke. And so he's medically fragile. And so we just couldn't risk the possible sharing of those germs at all.
So there you go.
Yeah, and it was really hard, but I practiced what I talked about, and we'll post this in the thread tonight. But I practiced what I had mentioned about not allowing myself to look 24 hours or 48 hours ahead and such. And I also did what I always do when my heart feels heavy, and that is to dance to Bruno Mars.
Now, not to interrupt you, but I have notes here that I wrote down to try to cover bullet points. And one of the things that I wish you would please do is please discuss the dancing aspect of it.
Okay.
Because when you had talked to me the other night and I was feeling down because of what we talked about, when I used to drink, you could tell when Chuck had a buzz on, because I'd love to dance when I had a buzz on. Now that I don't drink, I don't dance. But, and I'm going to hand it over to you. And would you also please explain after the dancing part, would you explain the lymph nodes part also?
I will. But before I do that, did you dance after we talked?
So would you please? For a couple seconds, I did. I will admit that. And now I will never hear the end of that from my friends. But yes, I did. But after they hear the explanation from it, I think we'll have more people dancing. I actually have a friend of mine, her and her daughter run a Zumba class. So I get to run into them all the time. And one of their friends who has become a friend of mine, all she talks about is her Friday night out with the girls for them to dance. And then I looked at it from what you're going to explain, and it makes perfect sense. So I will stop talking and hand the floor over to you.
I'm going to challenge you. Next time you're feeling blue, next time you're missing Gloria more than usual, I'm going to challenge you to dance to the full song, not just a few frames, not just a few, seconds. But it's called dance movement therapy, and it's an actual healing modality. And what happens is, so we have with the International Grief Institute, we have a series of what's called Resilience RX. And those are all the different modalities that trigger the positive hormones in the brain. Okay. And so when you are under stress, whether it be grief or stress from being isolated or what have you, your brain secretes hormones, the stress hormones. Okay. Cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine, those are designed they have reactions in your body, and they're designed to save your life. You know, you think about being nearly hit by a car and that fight or flight or freeze, right? Mm-hmm. Those are hormones that are driving that. And you feel that rush of shock and, oh my goodness. Well, we also have happy hormones, and that is the oxytocin, the serotonin and the dopamine, right? So there are modalities that you can do that trigger those. And dance movement therapy is one of them. Now, the movement part of it, there are certain methodologies, different movements, but I am lazy at heart. So I just give me the dance, just give me Bruno Mars and I'm good. And so our daughter's 10th birthday in heaven was in February, and I woke up in a foul mood. I was sad. And so I turned on Bruno Mars in the kitchen and I danced one song. Okay. So my kids will be the first to tell you I can't dance, and they're not wrong. But I tell you what, at the end of that 3-minute song, my husband was laughing, I was laughing, and I felt a whole lot better. And so not only does it trigger the happy hormones in your brain, the movement creates the perfect diaphragmatic breath, which oxygenates your brain. Okay, so recess was invented for a reason. You send the kids outside to play and laugh and move all those large muscles of their body, and it oxygenates their brain so they come back in and they can focus with clarity, right? And they can settle down. Well, the same is true for us adults. And so dance movement therapy, dancing, does the same thing. And so also your lymph system is responsible for the white cells and the cells in your body that, make up your immune system, right? So they fight the COVID virus cells and the bacterial cells, any kind of organism that gets in there that isn't supposed to be in there. Your lymph system is designed to deal with it. But it doesn't have its own pump, like the heart has its own pump. So the lymph system relies upon movement of large muscles in your body to circulate that lymph fluid. And dancing does just that. And so dancing keeps you healthy. It also triggers the happy hormones in your brain. So next time you're feeling down, I challenge you to pick a song that you really love, a happy song, and dance to it like no one's watching. Okay, because it's not about what dance moves you can bust out. It's not about remembering the Macarena. It is about triggering the happy hormones in your brain. And I want you to try this. Pick one song, dance to it, and I want you to notice how you feel. And then I want you to notice how you feel all day long. Okay? So that's how dance movement therapy works. And Chuck, I challenge you. Next time you're feeling extra sad, I want you to dance to the whole song. And then I want you to post about it on Facebook. And I want you to share what song it was.
Okay.
You don't have to share your dance moves.
No, I won't. You don't have to worry about that.
You don't have to record it. But I want you to share what you danced to and how it made you feel when you were dancing. And then I want you to share how you felt for hours after. Okay?
I will.
And now I want you to pass that challenge on. We're creating a new Facebook challenge. It's the dance challenge. It's the COVID challenge.
The COVID challenge.
Before we go back, I want you to explain something to me that, and to our viewers actually, it's something that you shared with me a couple of years ago. It was something that your brother had come up with, and it was about writing on the wall. Do you remember that?
Oh, it's a Bo's board.
Will you share that with the viewers?
Yeah, I will. And then I just have one other thing after that I would like to discuss. My brother lives out in Colorado, and it was Denver. There were I think it was 11 suicides in 11 weeks, and the school didn't want to talk about it. No schools want to talk about it because all schools want to be special school, blah, blah,
They're
blah.
worried about it being contagious.
You know, and so in Colorado Springs, where he lives, they came up with I forgot the name of it, but they came up with a system, and I'm sorry, I can't believe I'll blame it on age. That what you could do was you could text this certain number, and when you text that number, it would go to the school, and the resource officers would see it. And so you could text about drugs, suicidal thoughts or stuff. And then the resource officers would come to your house, and only the resource officers and the principal would know about it. So he was home one night, and there was a knock at the door. And okay, he goes to the door, and there was 2 police officers standing there. He's going, "Can I help you?" And they asked if his stepdaughter was there, and they said no. She's over at her dad's house. Well, and once they texted that number and they came to your address, they could not put you out of their sight until they saw the person that it was texted about, which would have been Bo. And so they had to follow them over to the father's house, and they went in and talked to his stepdaughter. And come to find out, there had been pressure put on the stepdaughter by the father about better grades, and she just had enough. So she had texted her friend that. Well, the next day when she came home, and my brother, God bless him, he goes, "You know what? Come on with me." My brother's an artist. He owns his own painting company out in Colorado Springs. He says, "Come with me. I need to go to the store." So he went to the store, and he picked up a couple pieces of paper, construction paper, and some markers, and brought him back to the house. And he went to the family room, and she goes, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Just give me a second." And he put one construction paper on one side of the room, and he put the other construction paper, taped it up on the wall on the other side. And he said, "What I want you to do is I want you to do me a favor. I want you to put the names of everybody on that piece of paper that love you. Your sister, your uncles, your aunts, your mom." She goes, "Okay. Why?" He goes, "Please just do me a favor and do it." So he went over to the other side and started putting names on the other paper. And she turned around and she goes, "Well, what are you doing?" She goes, "I don't know any of those people." He goes, "Just go ahead and finish, and I'll explain it to you when you're done." So he gets done, and she goes, "Okay." She goes, "So why did I do this?" And he said that, look, he goes, "If you had committed suicide, everybody up on that board would feel bad because they love you. And teenagers do not think that way until something, or they're told about it." And she goes, "Well, what about everybody on there? I don't know most of those people." And he goes, "Those are the people that would feel bad for me because you committed suicide. So these are all the people it would have affected." And so he goes, "Look," he goes, "you can take that down when you want to, anytime." She left those papers up there for a month.
Wow.
And
Wow.
that's how much it affected her.
What
Well,
a visual.
It's for him to think that up and to use it. It's perfect. It really is, because if you know somebody who's younger, because they're only thinking about themselves and how much pain they're in. They're not thinking about, and unfortunately, and this is something that I didn't think about when I attempted suicide the first time. 1 second, Alicia. Sorry. But that's one thing you have to think about is them. They need to. I need you. Sorry, I need my engineer. I need to plug in. Oh, thank you. Sorry, everybody. I apologize. This proves how much electronically intelligent Chuck is. I am not. But I just had this pop up on my computer that I'm low. So it has to be here. Okay. Oh. No, that's all right. Thank you. Okay, there. So I just wanted to let you know that I didn't think about anybody else, and I didn't think about it until after it was over with, because I was only thinking about the pain I was in. And unfortunately, people that are suicidal, that's what happens. You get in so much pain for yourself that you don't think about other people. And that is something that really needs to be passed on. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because once I realized it, like when I was put into the hospital after my attempted suicide the first time, I will never, ever, ever forget the look on my mother's face when she walked through the door when they let her visit me, because I never thought about the pain. And then when I was thinking about it, when Glor passed away, attempting suicide, and I had the gun loaded, and I was, for the one time that I was actually semi-smart in my life, I thought, Chuck, who's going to find me? And Alicia was the only one with the key to the house. So Alicia and her wife would have walked in and found me, and all I would have been doing was passing the pain on. Mm-hmm. And people that are attempting suicide don't think about that. And if people could take a second and realize that the pain they're in, that they'll just be passing that pain on, it might make a big difference in the way people think, because that's the one thing that stopped me. Was I said, you know what, I'm not going to pass this pain on to anybody else. Well
said, Chuck. Well said. Your brother's idea is brilliant, and I've never forgotten it. And that's why I wanted you to share it again tonight for those who haven't heard it before. And suicide happens when the pain exceeds the coping skills.
Yes.
But the important thing to remember is that pain passes. It does. When you're in that moment of pain, and I remember after our daughter died, not wanting to live. Mm-hmm. But I hung on because for different reasons. But the point being is that the pain now, of course, I have a life I love. And so yes. Pain does pass. So in that moment when your pain exceeds your coping skills, just breathe.
Yes, please do. Because the first time I thought that I would never get up. I had been knocked down for, I thought, was the last time.
Right.
And if little Cork hadn't grabbed the gun away from me, I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I have moved ahead and taken steps ahead. But
thank you for sharing that, and thank you for sharing, so eloquently that, you didn't want Alicia to find you, because you would have just been passing that pain on. And you're absolutely right. That's truth. And you love her too much to do that. And so now, can you honestly answer, are you glad you didn't die by suicide that night?
Oh, yes. Yes, I am. Because I'm glad for the things that I do now. It's not something I ever thought that I would be doing.
You and me both. Yep.
And if you don't mind, I'm driven to help people now. I put that, and one of the reasons I put myself out there as much as I do is because of the stigma that's attached to suicide. I want people to be able to come up to me, because if they don't want to talk to their friends or their parents or anybody that, if I get myself out there enough, they know that they can come and talk to me and know that I don't say anything to anybody, that everything that's discussed with me is confidential.
Yeah.
And I've had people come up to me in a restaurant while I was eating. I had a mother-daughter stop me in the mall while I was walking in the mall. And I actually was cleaning at work. I was cleaning glass windows, and I'm going to tell you what, after you're cleaning enough glass windows on a door, you get bored. But I always look behind me through the glass, because students at the university, you can put 2 doors there, lady, but if they always go out this one door, that's the door they want to go out. So you're always looking behind you. And I saw this gentleman walk by me, and he was looking, and I thought, oh, he's admiring my work. Well, he walked by again. Oh, okay. And he walked by a third time. When he walked by a third time, I turned around more and I looked at him, and he goes, wait a second. He goes, are you the suicide guy? And I said, yeah, I am. And he goes, do you got a minute? He goes, I lost my 13-year-old and I really need somebody to talk to.
Oh my goodness.
So that's things that I want people to do. And at the university, I always wear my Rock Against Suicide t-shirt, I have a couple other suicide shirts. So everybody knows at the university what I do. And I have students that come up and say, are you Chuck? You got a minute? Can I talk to you? Because they don't want to talk to their roommates. They're not at home. And I've had the opportunity.
You're coachable.
The last time we talked, I had won an award at the university, and I told you about that. It was for the seniors who voted on the person that they'll always remember, and I won it, and I was the first non-academic person to ever win the award. Well, this year I won another award. It's called the Bearcat Recognition Award, that one of the professors saw what I was doing all the time and saw how much I cared for the students, so he had nominated for me. So those 2 awards, not that I'm looking for awards, but they mean so much because I know that I'm helping and reaching people, and that's what my life is all about now.
And he who helps others helps himself.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Thank you, Chuck. You are.
And can I give you one last thing, please, before we go?
Yep.
For people that are out there, please put the National Suicide Hotline in your phone, because you never know when you might need it to help somebody. And if you have it on your phone, you don't have to worry about getting in that situation where all of a sudden you're in that emergency situation. You go, boy, I wish I would have that number on my phone. Well, if you put that number in your phone now, it's already there, and you could be able to help somebody and not even realize that you're doing it. And the other point is, a lot of kids, and for you older people and that have younger relatives and cousins and stuff, they text. And one of the things that all the kids do now, and they text the National Suicide Hotline, and you can do that by texting hello to 741-741. So because of their age and because of this modern stuff that obviously everybody knows now, I know nothing about. I had to call for my stepdaughter just to plug in the battery because the battery low thing popped up on the screen. But that's what the kids do, and they text. So hello to 741-741 is for younger people that don't want to actually talk on the suicide hotline. And thank you for letting me say that, Linda. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for bringing that up. That's really important. So how can people find you if they have a question or if they want advice? What's the best way for people to reach out to you?
The easiest way for them to reach out to me is Facebook.
Okay.
I use Messenger so we can have confidential talks to each other that other people don't see, unless, technically they can get in and all that stuff. But I use Messenger with most of the people. And then if it gets to the point where we need to talk, then that way we exchange the phone number. Okay. And actually my phone number is on Facebook.
Okay. Thank you, Chuck. I so appreciate you and all that you do. Congratulations on another award. And I know that, you would give all those awards back again just to have Gloria, but it is a recognition of just how an example of you turning pain into purpose. And that's an inspiration to other people that if you can do it, they can too.
Yes,
and,
they can.
And so the challenge is on for you to dance and to post the song that you danced to, how it made you feel when you were dancing, and how you felt later on that day, and to answer the question of one person in the thread on what song did I dance to, Bruno Mars. It was Uptown Funk. That's my go-to. So,
and I actually saw that, and I saw the joy on your face when
I teach a class at a college here locally, and it's Resilience RX. It's a 2.5-hour class. And I played that song. I teach them about dance movement therapy. That's one of the modalities in the 10 steps to train your brain to stress less. Okay. And so I play Uptown Funk. And I invite the class to get up and dance with me. And it's really, really a fun way. And so to answer the question, it's Uptown Funk, Bruno Mars. You pick whatever gets your feet moving. And I challenge you, the challenge is on. I'm going to call you the Suicide Guy. And you are a blessing. So it's always a joy to have you on the show. And I thank you for just sharing your heart. And you're always a treat for me. You make my heart feel just as happy as Bruno Mars. So there you go.
I appreciate that, because you make my day every time we talk, no matter how I felt. Even when I felt bad the other day and I talked to you, I got off the phone with a smile on my face. You are a blessing to everybody. You really are, for all the work you do.
Thank you so much. You are very, very kind. But actually, I was the one who got off the phone feeling better than when I started. So what a treat. But I am going to post this. If for some reason I can't upload it in the thread here on Facebook, you can go to internationalgriefinstitute.com, and the menu under the IGI Resource Library, you can find it there. Click on it and you can print it. And it's ways to deal with, coping with isolation and such. And just something for you to print and share or keep for yourself. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Chuck, thank you for joining me tonight. And, I know that this isolation thing is really, really hard, but it is temporary. And if you can just remember to take it 48 hours at a time, we will all get through it, even if we're all dancing to Bruno Mars. All right. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, everyone. We'll see you again next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Chuck. Take care.
Bye now.